Okay. So let's talk about our smartphones. Let's talk about these little devices and what that has to do with Jesus and with Satan and with this whole topic that we're having these days on spiritual warfare. So just a quick summary of where we are at. Shared this every week. Jesus and Satan have different plans for our lives. Jesus wants us to live a life of love, fulfillment, purpose, and joy, and ultimately, of course, eternity in God's kingdom. Satan, on the other hand, wants us to live a life of hatred, despair, loneliness, emptiness, turmoil, and ultimately in hell. And our actions strengthen either one or the other as they fight over our lives. The good news for us as Christians is Satan lost his power. Jesus disarmed him when he died, when he rose again from the dead. All authority was given unto Jesus. And so Satan has no power and no authority left over us. He has no power over us as Christians any longer. But what he still does is he lies to us, he tempts us, he tries to distract us. Satan cannot make us sin any longer. But what he can do is he can tempt us so that we choose to sin. So in the end, it's really our choice. He can tempt us, lie to us, but he has no power over us any longer. We looked at Genesis 3 and Matthew 4. We see Satan's tactics there, what he does, how he speaks to us, how he tries to lie to us. And then last week, we looked at teach us to number our days. We often live as if we have eternal time, as if we live forever on this earth, but we don't. God's purpose on this earth for us is to make an eternal difference. Satan is trying to steal our time, that we focus on the things of this world, that we focus on, he tries to distract us, so that we focus on making an impact now on our day to day that will not last, instead of focusing on eternity and what we are really here for. We have to be diligent to guard our time because our time is limited. And the more time we allow Satan to distract us, the less impact we have on eternity. The more we are able to guard our time and protect our time on this earth, the greater our impact is on eternity. The key verse from last week, but also today, is Psalm 90, verse 12. Teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. We need to know that our time is limited, and then we will live a life that honors God. Today, we'll go into one specific aspect of this fight over our time. We'll talk about our smartphones. I want to be upfront. This is a very practical sermon. Jesus, 2,000 years ago, did not say much about smartphones because there were none. 20, 30 years ago, none of us had a smartphone yet. So it's a relatively new phenomena. But the principles that we talked about last week about teach us to number our days and making the most of our time, really apply in our society today very well when it comes to the use of these little devices. Now, this is a continuation from last week, and because this is such a new phenomena, there won't be a lot of Bible verses in today's sermon. It's a very practical sermon, I have to admit that. But the foundations were laid last week. So I want to encourage everyone, if you were not here last week, then please listen to that sermon again and really look at today's sermon in light of the biblical foundations that we laid last week. The point that we need to remember, Satan is trying to steal our time. And the way we will see it, what we will see today is really one of his main tools that he is using nowadays is Satan wants to steal our time through our phones. And he's very efficient and very effective on that. And we have to be aware of that, and we need to protect our time, despite the fact that we are all hanging on our phones all the time. Let's start with something that should be obvious. Have you ever walked in the U-Bahn or in a cafe or something like that, and everybody was on their phones, and you just thought, something is wrong here? Sometimes we look at other people, we go into the U-Bahn, and every single person sitting on the bench there, sitting on the seats, is on their phones. Nobody is talking to each other. There are families there, there are couples there, there are friends there, but nobody is talking to each other. Everybody is just on the screen. Maybe you've observed parents who were just on the screen and didn't pay attention to their children. True story, happened just this week. Noah and I were playing table tennis outside. Next to us was a dad playing with his daughter, and every 10 seconds he interrupted the game because he had to check something on his phone. And I was wondering, how sad must that daughter feel right now? Dad is making time to play, but he's not really playing. He feels like she is interrupting his screen time, and he's paying more attention to the screen, to his phone, than to her. Have you ever been to a cafe or something and you see people sitting there next to each other or opposite each other, clearly belonging together, but they are not talking to each other? Each of them is hanging on their phone. And they are near to each other, but they are not talking to each other. A person in Shanghai said, we need to redefine friendship. Friendship now means texting in close proximity. It's kind of sad if that is reality, but how many people really treat friendship like that? Many years ago, I didn't have a smartphone yet, was living in Shanghai, went to the metro there, and everybody was on their screen, and then I thought, this is so wrong, this is so bad, I will never become like that. A couple of years later, I got my first phone, and in the beginning I was kind of controlling myself, and I said, okay, I'm not going to use it like that, like other people. But then eventually I realized, step by step, I was the one sitting in the metro like everyone else, and all I did was looking at my screen. And I realized I just dived in, and I just became like everyone else. But I found ways to justify myself. I said, this is different. I'm listening to worship music. They're listening to worldly music. I'm listening to worship music, so that makes it different. Or I'm reading my Bible on my phone. That makes it different. And I just realized this is wrong. I'm doing the same things as everyone else, but I'm kind of justifying myself. And I'm kind of telling myself what I'm doing is okay, but what everyone else is doing, that's wrong. They are addicted to the screen. I'm not, because I'm doing something different. Maybe you have gone through something similar. You have seen other people on the screen and you thought this is wrong. But then we kind of look at ourselves and then we have to admit, I'm doing the same thing. Sometimes it's easier for us to be objective when it comes to other people and to kind of think like, okay, they are doing something wrong. But then when we do the same thing, we kind of find a reason to justify ourselves. Certainly happened to me many times. Just to be clear, smartphones can be a great blessing. If we can call each other in case of an emergency. If I can say, hey, yesterday we went to the Allianz Arena, I also had to use my phone to figure out how on earth do I get there, where do I change which train do I take, where do I need to interchange, can be a great blessing. Getting directions. A week from now, I will be going to Budapest. I'm so thankful for my phone, because without my phone, I would not know how to get to the hotel that I'm staying. Getting tickets or something on the phone, so we don't have to print them out. We get a QR code on our phone, we just show it at the movies or wherever we are going. It's so convenient. Or getting a shared car. If we suddenly need a car or something like that, just a few tips. There's a car, and then I can take that car. That's all great. So I'm not saying that smartphones in themselves are bad. And if we use them properly, they can be a great blessing. I told you last week the story of my friend in Shanghai. I'm not sure if he was alive anymore when he got into an accident and when he got hit by a car. I don't know what would have happened if he was not able to call his friend and to say, I got into an accident, please come and help me. So smartphones in themselves are not bad if we use them properly. But I do want to share some dangers with all of us that maybe we are not aware of. From a spiritual side, Satan purposely puts lots of distractions in our phones that steal our time. We text all the time, sometimes on things that are really not important, that we don't care about, but we feel the need to text anyways. We watch movies all the times. We read news all the times. We play meaningless games all the times. We are on social media and try to be part of people's lives that we don't care about, but we read their posts and we kind of feel like I want to know what's going on in that person's life, even though it makes no difference to them or to us. And if we were to take an objective look at that, we would have to admit most of us spend hours on the phone on stuff that simply doesn't matter. That makes no difference, and that has no impact on God's kingdom. We simply waste our time. And the result of that is that we don't have time anymore for things that are more important. Because we get so distracted with these devices that at the end of the day, something that is more important falls through the cracks. Some people don't sleep enough, are tired all the time because they spend so much time on their screen. Some Christians don't have time with God because 2 or 3 hours a day go to their phone and something else has to go because the day doesn't get longer just because we are on our phones. And so their time with God suffers. Some people don't do their work well. Some people don't pay attention to their marriage or to their children any longer because they spend too much time on their phone. Some people don't have time to invest in themselves any longer. They don't have downtime because they feel that they always have to be on their phone. Satan is trying to steal our time. And before we know it, we realize that I spend so much time on my phone that now something that is more important is suffering. I don't have time anymore for God, for my family, for my friends, whatever it is. Something more important falls through the cracks because we waste our time on the screen. Now there are some things we should know about our phones. And there are some facts that those people who work for or produce these phones don't tell us, but they are nevertheless true. What we hear in advertisement is that phones, the purpose of the phones is to make our lives easier. So that we can call each other, so we can find places, so that they make our lives easier. Advertisement tells us about all these things. But did you know that all these people who invented these phones, like someone like Steve Jobs and other people like him, did you know that they do not or did not allow their own children to use their own product? They are selling something to the whole world, but to their own children they say, don't use it, it's dangerous. They know something about the phones that most people don't know. Cell phones are not being made to make our lives easier. They are not being made to make us happy. They are not being made to simplify our lives. The purpose of cell phones is to make money. That's what they are after. And you know how money is spelled when it comes to screen? T-I-M-E. Every moment we spend on our phones, someone is making money. You might ask how? Well, how often are we on our phones and suddenly an advertisement pops up? That's money. How often are we on our phones and then there's an in-app purchase or something like that, and then we click there and suddenly we spend €1 or €2? It might not be a big amount, but if you have millions of people all over the world clicking on that button, it's a lot of money. And so someone gets rich off our time. Of course, mobile data and these kind of things, you're constantly being bombarded. You need more mobile data, and you need to be flexible, and you need to be reachable all the time. Well, someone makes money. Whether we know it or not, Every moment we spend time on our phones, we are filling someone's pocket. Every moment we open an app, we read something on the internet, or we do something on our phones, someone that we never met and that we will never meet is smiling and is saying, I got you. And I'm making money because you spend time on this phone. What does that make us? We are not the purpose of our phones. We are the product. We and our time is being sold for the sake of money. That's what's really going on. Of course, you don't see that in advertisement. Nobody says like, hey, buy our phone, we want to make money off your time. Nobody says it that way. But that's what's behind these products. That's what's behind the advertisement. That's how our phones are designed. Our phones are designed so that we become addicted, so that we spend more and more time on our phones, so that we come from one thing to the next. We just want to do one thing quickly, then there's an advertisement or something, then we click on the next thing, then we click on the next thing, then on the next thing, and we spend more and more time on our phones because every minute we spend on it, someone makes money. Now, if we acknowledge that and if we know that, that should change the way we look at these little devices. Then we should not treat them as, oh, you make my life so convenient. We should treat them as, I need to be careful how I use you because you are trying to steal my time for the sake of money. If we have that kind of mindset, then I think we will use them very, very differently. So cell phones are designed to make us addicted. Cell phones are designed to lead us from one topic into the next. Cell phones are designed to throw advertisement at us as often as possible. Cell phones are designed to give us short-term fun, to enjoy what we are doing, so that we just keep on our screen. And ultimately, of course, who is behind all this? Satan. Because Satan, one of his greatest temptations today is Satan wants to steal your time. He wants to steal my time. And he wants us to get so addicted to these little devices that we just waste our time. We don't pray, we don't read the Bible, we don't evangelize, we don't do all these things that Jesus wants us to do. And at the end of our lives, we realize it's all gone. Now I don't have any time left. And I wasted my life. And a big part of it, a big chunk of it, went to my cell phone. Phones in themselves are not bad. But what Satan is trying to put in our phones, that's what we need to be very, very careful about. What are some of the consequences? Well, relationships, real relationships, often suffer. Because our phones are relatively new, we don't even know yet of all the consequences that they have on us. But we do start to see the first signs of what effects these phones have. One finding that researchers have found out over the last few years, young children feel more and more insecure. Young children who grow up, when their parents have phones, they feel much more insecure compared to children who grew up 20, 30 years ago. And one of the major reasons, it's amazing, and I don't know how you do this kind of research, but I trust this finding. When a mother feeds the baby 30 years ago, who does the mother look at? The baby. Today, who or what does the mother look at? At the phone. And this little change sends a message to the child, mother's phone is more important than me. And it makes children feel insecure. It makes children feel less loved. It makes children feel like they're competing with technology from the time of their birth. Small change, and it has an effect on the psychology of the children. And I'm sure, wait another 10, 20, 30 years, wait another generation, and we will find out a lot more of these little details, of these little effects that phones have on society, on our relationships. How many friendships have we lost or are not the same any longer because of our phones? We spend less time with our friends in real life. When we spend time together, we spend more time on our phones. When we get a message or a call, even if we have dinner together and we have a conversation, suddenly we get a message. What do? We pick up the phone. We answer the call or we text back. And so our focus is totally divided and our relationships with each other suffer because we feel like I don't have your undivided attention. Your phone is more important than I am. How about health? Many people start feeling the effects of looking on the phone all the time on their backs. Why? Because we're sitting like this all the time, looking down on our screen, and it's a very unhealthy position. And so people start having back pains. Our attention spans get shorter and shorter. Think about it. 30, 40 years ago, the attention span of people was much longer. Now it gets shorter and shorter due to the influence of our devices. It has influence on our work because we can pay less attention there. It has an influence on how productive we are and all kinds of things. And then we don't have time for what really matters any longer. Health, God, family, friends, all these kind of things suffer. Why? Because we are so glued to our screens. Here are a few pictures that we have all seen in real life, probably not like this. Maybe we can turn off the light to see them a bit more clearly. We become more and more attached to our phones than to our partner. When we are with our partner, we pay more attention to our phones. Our marriage slowly goes down, and we might not even notice until it's too late. Our relationship with our children suffer. Parents focus on their phones. Family time is about our phones and not about investing in our relationships with each other. And suddenly we realize I don't have a relationship with my children any longer. When we are with friends, we spend our time focusing on other people on the phone instead of each other, and so our relationships become more and more shallow. Think about the early church. Think about the book of Acts. Think about the kind of relationships that they had with each other. They were one family. They shared their whole lives with each other. They shared their resources with each other. They lived together. They did all kinds of things. Can we get there? Can we have those kind of relationships with each other if we spend hours on the phone? We can't. If we want to become an Acts kind of church here in Munich, we have to spend time with each other. We have to invest in each other. And our phones stand in the way. And we have these kind of relationships that are very shallow, very superficial, but not nearly what God wants us to have with each other. So that's the dangers that we have to be aware of. That's what we are dealing with. That's what's happening. Every time we are on that screen, every time we do something with our phones, Satan is trying to take our time, to steal our time, so that we spend more and more time on there. And we spend less and less time on what really matters, what matters eternally. But let's move on to the good news. Jesus can equip us to overcome these temptations. John 16:33, "These things I have spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In this world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." Does that include our cell phones? Yes. Jesus has overcome them. 2 Peter 1:3, "According as his divine power has given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him who has called us to glory and virtue." God has given us everything we need to overcome these temptations of our phones. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. The NIV puts it as a spirit of self-control. God can give us the self-control we need so that not the cell phones control us, but we control the phones and we use them wisely. Remember what we talked about over the last few weeks? Satan can tempt us. He can lie to us. But Satan cannot overpower us. Satan can put stuff in our phones that draw us to spend more time on our phones. But Jesus can empower us to overcome all those things. We have a choice. The phones don't need to control us. We can choose to control our phones instead. It's not a matter of power any longer. It's a matter of choice. That's what Jesus accomplished on the cross. So the first thing we need to do, be aware of the dangers. Be aware of the temptations. Be aware of the spirit that is behind our phones, the intentions that are behind our phones, and that they are really designed to make us addicted and to spend more and more time on there, and all the terrible consequences that has. Once we understand that, then we can learn to set boundaries. Set boundaries with our phones, and I would categorize that or put that in two categories. Let's put boundaries there with our time, and let's put boundaries there with the locations. Time. We can say things like, in the evening at a certain time, my phone is going to go off. I don't know your schedule, but maybe there is a time when we can say, I finish my work at this time, and then from that time it's family time, and our phones are going to be off. No more, because we need to focus on other things. We can choose to not take our phones to certain events. We can say, when I have my lunch break at work, as if you're working or maybe you're at school or whatever is convenient for you, these events are going to be phone-free. And when I have my lunch break at work, I leave my phone on my desk because during my lunch break, I want to invest in my relationships with my colleagues. And I want to have meaningful conversations with them. So during that time, my phone is not going to be near me. Now, it can apply to any event, can apply to any situations, but we can make these kind of choices and say, that time, my phone is not going to be there with me. We can choose to purposely leave our phones at home for certain events. We can say, I'm having a date night with my spouse, or I'm meeting a friend. You know what I'm going to do? My phone is going to stay home because I want to spend meaningful time with this person. We can make certain rooms phone-free. We can say, what? Our phones will not enter our bedroom any longer. They stay in the living room. So when I rest, there's not going to be a phone. When I have time with my spouse in the evening, and we're praying our good night prayers or whatever our evening ritual is, our phones will not distract us. There are many different ways of doing this. How this can be done is different for you than it is for me. Life situations are different, so I cannot tell you this is how you do it. But I hope you get the idea. Set boundaries and simply decide at certain times or in certain locations, my phone is going to be off. My phone is going to be turned off, or it's not going to come with me, or in whatever way works. But those are phone-free zones. And they will not enter there any longer. Next thing we can do, make your smartphone dumb. What do I mean by that? Well, the more stuff we put in our phones, the more things can distract us. So if we remove stuff from our phones, they can't waste our time any longer. I personally try to be very careful now about what kind of apps I install on my phone. And I basically categorize them in two categories. The first kind is apps of convenience. That is something like Google Maps. It's very convenient for me to find a place or get to the right address or whatever if I have Google Maps. MVG app, same thing. If I need to get around, when is my next bus coming, which route? Oh, today's the marathon, I can't take my usual route. What do I do now? That's an app of convenience. Payment apps. That's an app. I love the simplicity of just paying with a QR code or something like that, so I don't have to carry around cash. And so I love that. It's very convenient. Bible app, car sharing app, online banking, these kind of things. What do they all have in common? Well, two things. First of all, they really simplify my life. And the second thing is they don't waste my time. I don't sit on my online banking app and swipe and look and click on the next thing. It can't happen. It's not that kind of app. I don't sit in my bed in the evening and look at Google Maps and think like, oh, where is this street and where is that street and how can I get from here to there? I don't do that. It doesn't waste my time. So those are two factors that I always consider. Is it simplifying my life? Is it convenient? And am I wasting my time on it? And if it's convenient and it's not an app that wastes my time, then I leave it on my phone. But then there are other apps that are just distractions. I don't know what your poison is. For me, it's something like YouTube app, a movie app, browsers, sports news apps, these kind of things. That is my poison. That's where I can easily spend an hour, 2, 3, and just read and just waste my time on useless stuff. And so I made a decision. Those apps are all gone. They're not on my phone any longer. I uninstalled them all. Why? Well, the opposite of the apps that I just described. They don't enhance my life. They don't make a difference in my life. But they really waste my time if I let them. And that's why I decided, okay, they are all gone. I don't want to have them on my phone any longer. So we should examine ourselves, or we should examine our phones. What is on there? And if we find stuff that is really just a waste of time and doesn't make a difference, doesn't enhance my life, why are they on there? We should get rid of them. Does that mean that we should just completely stop all these things? No more movies, no more social media, no more nothing? Well, we don't need to completely stop all these things. But one of the things that I have done with these kind of things, I put them all on my desktop. What's the difference? Well, it makes a big difference. Imagine it's 9 p.m., I'm tired, and I want to sleep. If I have my phone next to me with YouTube or something like that, I will probably pick up my phone and just waste my time and stimulate my brain so that I can't sleep or I don't sleep deeply and all kinds of things. So that is very tempting to just pick it up and to just take it and to just watch something. But what I will not do is, I will not turn on my computer so that I can watch something. That is a big step and a big effort because I have to kind of get the laptop here and I have to turn it on and all these things. And there's a certain barrier where I then say, you know, I'm not going to do that, it's not worth it. So our computers, our desktops, whatever you have, Apple, in whatever form, our computers are far less invasive. We don't carry them with us all the time. We don't just have them in our pocket, and so they are not always reachable. They are not as easily accessible as our phones. They are not turned on all the time. Our phones are usually turned on 24/7. Our laptops, we turn them on when we need them. And so when we put all this in our desktop, our laptop, or whatever we use, then there is a certain barrier. And we start thinking twice, Do I really want to turn on my computer now just to watch a YouTube video? Do I really want to turn on my computer now just to check Facebook or Instagram or whatever we are using? There is a certain barrier. And so if we push everything from our phones in our desktop, we will be far less tempted to waste our time on these things. And when we then say, okay, I want to watch a movie tonight, or I want to do something on Facebook or whatever, we make a conscious decision, I really want to do this. And we are not just tempted to waste our time just because it's accessible on our phones. So this is something that has made a big difference for me as well. I'm not giving up on all these things, but pushing them to the desktop means I don't waste that much time on these things. Next thing we can do, ask others what they observe in us. This is obviously much easier for those who are married, have a family, but we can all do this also with good friends. Ask your friends, ask your family members, what do you observe in me? And if you feel that I'm wasting my time on my phone, please tell me. Very often we don't see it ourselves, but the people around us can see it much more objectively. When we go to our friends or we go to our spouse and that person says, you know what, you're not paying attention to me right now. You're just on the screen. Can I have your attention, please? Or if someone says, you know, I think you're wasting your time right now. I've seen you on the phone for the last half hour. I don't see you doing anything productive. Are you sure you want to do this? If we tell each other, you know, you've been on Instagram for the last 30 minutes. Is it really worth spending all this time on these things? Don't you think that you can use your time better? Or if we say to each other, I think you should sleep now. You're tired. And you're just wasting time right now. Isn't it better to sleep now so you're fit tomorrow rather than just lying in bed with your phone and just wasting another 30 minutes on who knows what you're doing? Very often people around us see when we are wasting time when we don't notice it. So give each other permission to say, if you see me wasting time on my phone, please tell me. Hold me accountable. Because I want to use my time better. And if my phone is distracting me and I don't notice, but you do, then please tell me. So these are some practical steps that we can all take. My family and I have we've had these kind of discussions over the last few months. Listen to a sermon series by another church who did this over more than a month. And a lot of what I'm sharing today actually comes from them. And then I started analyzing myself. And I started really looking into this topic, how I am doing. And that's when I realized how much time I was wasting on my phone. And how that affected myself, how that affected my family, and how that affected other aspects of my life. So here are a few steps that we have taken. We are learning, this is work in progress, and I'm not saying this is now exactly what you should do, your life situation is different, but here are some practical steps that we have taken. One of the things we do is our phone's internet goes off at 7 p.m. So we still have mobile data or something if we really need to, but our Wi-Fi is not accessible for our phones any longer. That is a barrier. So if it's 7:30 and we are tempted to check Facebook or something like that, and I'm going on my phone, then there's I don't have internet. And it is a reminder for me to say, you know what, this is not the time for something like this. Stop it. And then hopefully, not always, but hopefully, I'll put away my phone, getting this reminder that this is the wrong time for this. Internet then goes off completely at 10 p.m. So also our desktops and laptops and everything, we don't have internet any longer. So at 10 p.m. it's time to rest. At 10 p.m. it's time to just shut it all down. And so no more internet from 10 p.m. Already mentioned this, I uninstalled everything that took away my time. My Netflix app, my YouTube app, my browsers, my sports news apps, all these things that I spend a lot of time on. I realized, okay, no more. They go away. I can still check them throughout the day. These things, I still have my desktop, but on my phone, these things are gone. Another thing that made a huge difference. I uninstalled my email account from my phone. What I realized was, so often, was early in the morning, so 6:30, something like that, and I just turned on my phone, I got my emails, and suddenly I got something about work, or some form of emergency from somewhere. What do you think happened immediately at breakfast table? I could only think about one thing, my emergency at work. My emails were such a huge distraction, especially in the morning. And so I came to that point where I said, my emails now move completely to my desktop and not on my phone any longer. So when I get up and we have breakfast together, nobody from work can reach me yet. No emergency can reach me yet. It can wait another 30, 45 minutes. Then the kids start going to school and everything. Then I turn on my laptop. And then if there's really an emergency, I can still deal with it then. I don't need to wake up and the first thing I get is some alert, hey, you really need to do this at work. It ruins my day when I get that. Do you think I can have a real quiet time with God when I already saw this email that said, hey, emergency at work? I can't. Even if I try to pray then, even if I try to read the Bible, my mind only goes to that emergency that I got in my emails. And so that's why I took this step and I said, my emails go away from my phone. No more of that. They're in my desktop. And when I'm ready and when I'm saying, okay, now it's time to start work, then bring me all the emergencies, bring me all the stuff I need to do. That's fine. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm getting paid for. That's okay. But you don't interrupt my breakfast time with these emails. They have to wait until after that. Similar things, of course, could happen at any time. It's dinner time, I got an emergency email. Then instead of family time, I only thought about work. It's bedtime, I got an emergency email or something. Then instead of going to bed peacefully and sleeping peacefully, all I can think about is, oh, there's an emergency at work. And of course, it takes away my peace. So my emails are not available on my phone any longer. Another thing that we said is dining table, meal times are phone free. So if someone texts me, someone emails me during mealtime or something like that, I don't reply. I don't care about it. It has to wait till after the meal. Another thing, this is kind of funny, now thinking about it. I turned off the notifications from my phone. I don't know how you deal with it when you hear your phone buzzing. I cannot think about anything else but what was this buzz all about? Is someone dying? Is something really bad happening right now? Was it just a reminder from my phone that has nothing to do with me? What's going on? And there's something inside of me that says, I need to check this notification now. Sad story. Back in Shanghai. Now, I'm not looking down on him because I realized I did the same thing. But this just opened my eyes that this is so wrong. Our worship leader was sitting in the same office. He was practicing for the next worship set. And so he was practicing his songs. So he started singing and he started playing his song. After 10 seconds, his phone started beeping. He stopped singing. He checked the phone. He answered the message. He started the song again. 10 seconds later, the next message came in. He stopped the song again. And I was sitting there for 5-10 minutes, and the whole time the same thing. He started the song, he got a message, he stopped the song. He started the song, he got a message, he stopped the song. And I was sitting there and I was like, this is so wrong. You get nothing done because every time you get a buzz on your phone, you just drop everything and you just feel the need to reply to your phone. And so what I decided back then was, I'm going to turn off those notifications. And if I get messages, I don't care because I need to focus on my work right now. And then every hour or something, I said, now I have a bit of a break. Now it's time for me to look at my phone. Now it's time for me to reply to all the messages I got. But I decide when I respond to those notifications. I don't need to reply to everything instantaneously. I don't need this constant buzzing. I don't need this constant something is happening on my phone. All those notifications go away. I decide when I look at my phone. And I don't interrupt whatever I'm doing just because someone sends me a message. So these are some small changes that I did in the way I use my phone. And they really make a difference. First of all, it's much easier for me now to have a meaningful time with God in the morning. Before, my schedule felt so packed that I just felt rushed all the time. And so if I got an emergency email or something like that, then I just skipped over quiet time completely because I was like, I need to take care of this emergency. Now I can say, you know what, I don't get emergency emails. I don't get these kind of things. So first things first. We wake up, I send the kids off, we have breakfast together and everything. When everybody is gone, I'm having my quiet time. And I don't let those emergencies reach me until my quiet time is over. And then, after that, I turn on my computer, and then I can deal with all those emergencies. So it's much easier for me now to have a meaningful time with God because I set those boundaries, because I don't let the world reach me the moment I wake up. Definitely more time and focus with the family. We have more time for each other, with each other, and our time with each other is more focused. Definitely a better rest. I really feel the difference that I go to bed earlier and I sleep better because I set these boundaries and because I don't let the phone control me, especially just before I go to bed and just after I wake up. There's a much better rest now because I protect this time. And there's a certain sense of freedom. I feel much more in control of my life. I'm not driven by what my phone tells me, by all the emergencies that come through my phone and all these kind of things. They don't affect me any longer. Instead, I say, I'm in control and I decide when I deal with all these things that come through my phone. But I don't feel the urgency to just respond to everything all the time. So that was our experience, or my experience. Like I said, we are not perfect on this, and we definitely also have times when we fail and when I just turn on mobile data and kind of undo everything that I'm trying to do. So we are not perfect in this, but we are fighting. We are aware of the dangers, and we are fighting against the dangers, and we are trying to put our phones in the proper place so that they are convenient, that they are helpful, that they make a positive difference in our lives, but they don't control us. And we protect our time for what really matters. So I want to leave us all with a challenge today. Let's give our phone a proper break. I'm not saying throw it away. I'm not saying just don't use it at all for a month. That might be a bit extreme, and maybe we need our phones for our work or something, so that's not where I'm going with this. But what I am saying is, let's take some steps to limit the control that our phones have over us. Let's uninstall some stuff. Let's go through our app list and let's say, this app is wasting my time. I'm going to uninstall it and use my time better. Get off social media for a while. Or put it on your desktop instead of your phone and say, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever it's called now, I'm getting off there now for a while because I'm not wasting my time on that any longer. Get rid of things that are not really important. Maybe we enjoy them, but maybe we have to admit they are not really important. Maybe you have a certain game or something. For me, my temptation there is chess. I uninstalled my chess app. I love playing chess. But I realized if I have chess on my phone, I waste my time on it. Maybe we find these kind of things on our phones that we just realize, yeah, it's fun, but if I'm honest, it's not important, and I'm wasting my time on it. So let me uninstall it and see and use my time better. So uninstall some stuff, set boundaries with time. Like I said, our internet for the phones turns off at 7, it turns off completely at 10, and then in the morning at 7 it turns on again. Let's do something like that and just say certain times are phone free. And we put them in a box or whatever you want to do, whatever works for you. For me, I'm a computer geek, so I just programmed my router to turn on and off Wi-Fi at certain times. Maybe that's not your gift, then say, there is a box. And at 7 p.m. or whatever time works for you, everybody puts their phone in that box, lid on it, and tomorrow morning you get your phone back. Something like that. Try something like this, set boundaries with time, set boundaries with locations, and say, no phones in the bedroom, no phones in the kitchen, whatever makes sense for you. Or say the other way around and say, my phone stays on my working desk, and I'm not going to take it anywhere else. Whatever works for you. But set some boundaries and then experience what a life with less phone can be like again. 20, 30 years ago, nobody had a phone. And life was much easier. People were happier. And a big part of that is the distractions and the temptations that come through our phones. People back then had much more time for things that are more important. And they had more focus on the things that really mattered. Like God, like family, like friends, relationships. All these things that Satan is trying to take away from us through our phone. They had a freedom we lost. Because if we are not careful, our phones now really control us and direct our lives. We can return to that kind of lifestyle. We can take the convenience and the good things that our phones bring to us. But we can just at the same time also return to that kind of lifestyle and say, I'm going to set boundaries with my phone, I'm going to set limits, and I'm going to use it properly for the things that are helpful, and everything else goes off my phone. I'm not going to use it for those things any longer. Just one warning, if we really want to pick up the challenge, don't expect that in 2 days everything will be totally fine and totally different. Imagine a drug addict, an alcoholic, someone who is addicted to cigarettes or something like that. What do they go through if they say no more alcohol or no more drugs? They go through a time of withdrawal. If we want to pick up this challenge and say, I'm going to set limits with my phone, we will go through withdrawal symptoms. Because they have become such part of us, they have become such part of everyday's life, that the first days and maybe even weeks, we will sit there and wonder, what on earth am I going to do now without my phone? And we will feel very weird and very awkward, and it's withdrawal symptoms. So if we want to pick up this challenge, please don't just do it for 2 or 3 days and then think like, it's not working for me, and then give up. Then we have just wasted our time, and we have actually strengthened our addiction to the phone. If we want to pick up this challenge, give yourself a month and say from the very beginning, I'll try this for a month. I'll try this for 4 weeks. And I'm going to set my limits with my phone for the next month. Because anything shorter than that, we will probably not really reach the point of liberty, the point of freedom, where we actually find a different lifestyle and where we actually know what we do instead. Because just not doing one thing never helps. We need to do something else instead. Just saying I spend less time on my phone doesn't help. We still have that time. We still have those 1, 2, 3 hours in our day. The question is, what do I do with it then? And so it will take time if we now say, okay, less phone, fine, I'll try it. It will take time until we then say, less phone, great, but I'm going to spend more time with God. Less phone, great, but I'm going to spend more time with my spouse. I'm going to spend more time with my children, these kind of things. It takes time until we reach that point. And so if we want to pick up this challenge, really give yourself time. And don't give up before at least a month is over or something like that, until you're really settled in a new lifestyle. I've done that just before the summer break, and I don't want to go back. I'm so glad for that church that gave that sermon series. I'm so thankful to God that I stumbled over it and I listened to it, and I'm so glad that I did it, that I picked up the challenge. Now, I'm still fighting. I'm not perfect, and I still have days when I feel like, okay, today I wasted time again on my phone. I don't want to do it like that. But I'm aware of it. I'm fighting. I'm adjusting. I'm learning. And it definitely makes a difference. So let's finish today. Satan uses our phones trying to steal our time. And guess what? The fight will get harder and harder. Our phones are not the ultimate temptation of Satan. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, Satan will come up with another invention that will be even more invasive and even more distracting and even more tempting to steal our time. Satan is not done, and we have to be aware of that. Smartphones are what we are dealing with today. 20 years from now, it will be something even more dangerous. But God is still in control. God is still empowering us. God is still the same God. God has still overcome the world. Jesus has still defeated Satan. And Jesus can still help us put our phones and put whatever temptations we might face in the right place. So let's be wise. Let's ask Jesus to help us. Let's ask him to speak to us about things maybe that we do that are not pleasing to him. Ask him to speak to us about things where we are wasting our time right now. And let's ask him to help us to live differently, to set boundaries on those things, to put our phones in the right place, and then to make the most of our time, and to be wise as we number our days and make the most of this life for the glory of Jesus. May we pray. God, thank you for speaking to us, and Lord, I really want to thank you that that you have overcome this world, and you have already given us everything we needed 2,000 years ago. You have already equipped us to deal with the temptations and with the things that we are dealing with today, including our phones. So thank you, Lord. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for working in us, speaking to us, and helping us, Lord, really see Satan's temptations behind all of this. Lord, we pray, help us to be wise with our time, and help us to be wise with these little devices, with our phones. Give us wisdom, Lord, how to deal with them. Give us wisdom, Lord, how to set boundaries. Give us wisdom, Lord, how to not give in to how they are designed, to just waste our time, to just fill someone else's pocket with our time. Lord, we don't want to fall into these temptations, but we want to be in control. We want to be in control of our lives, and we want to honor you, Lord, with the way we spend each day, each minute. And we want to honor you with the way that we use our phones. We want to be in control of our phones, and we don't want them to control us. So Jesus, please help us, equip us, and give us whatever we need. And remind us that you have already given us everything we need to overcome this temptation. So please help us be wise, help us be determined, help us be sensitive, so that we are not like the rest of the world, but we are living differently, and we are honoring you with the way we use our phones. Thank you, Jesus, for being with us. Continue to speak to us for the glory of your name. Amen. As usual, just take a few moments and hear what he wants to say to us.